Welcome back to my channel. And today we have another special guest, another former elder, and we're going to hear his story right after the intro.
I'm changing my life and I won't look back ever again.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the video get out to more people, and together we can help a lot of people. All right, we're going to bring on Edward Ray here to join us. He's backstage right now. Hey,
Hey,
there
Stef.
you are.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, it's
I
my
can't
pleasure.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear your story. Yeah, I just let the audience know you're a former elder. You were an elder for 10 years and you escaped.
hmm
So, what brought or how did the witnesses come into your life?
well, I was I was in the military. That's when I met my wife, Jennifer, and she grew up around the religion. Well, her mom was baptized, her grandma was baptized, but her dad wasn't baptized. He got baptized later on when we all did. So I met her, and we just talked about certain things. And eventually, my brother-in-law started preaching to me, but he wasn't even baptized. And it's just kind of went from there. And then we, I was actually I had started working for the railroad, and then I was about to go back into the military because of furloughs and things like that. And Jennifer said, "We're never going to the meetings, are we?" So, and that was something that we wanted to do because to me it was something new. I grew up Catholic, so I wanted to know about the Bible. I actually wanted to be a religious person, a spiritual person, whatever that entails. And
Yeah.
so, anyways, we started going to the meetings. I didn't talk to the recruiter again, and then I
How
just
old were
kind
you
of
at
got
that
sucked
point?
in. I think I was around 28. I think I was
Okay.
28. Yeah, yeah.
And did you say
I don't.
her parents were witnesses?
Her mom was
Mm.
baptized, I think, in '75, and
Okay.
then yeah, and then but she was like she would go and then she wouldn't, but nobody else was baptized. Like the kids, nobody got baptized really until we did, and that was in 2001.
Okay. Okay. So then, so you got started getting involved. Were you like really super involved right away or?
Yeah, well, we studied with, two different couples because one of them ended up moving. And then, I just kind of looked around. I just wanted to fit in. So, of course, I had a goatee at the time. So I shaved off my goatee and I had just a mustache. And, the guy that studied with me is all happy. Like he told me, I didn't know how to tell you. And that kind of shows you that it really wasn't, you know, it's not the Jehovah's Witnesses' decision, whether they can or cannot have beards. It's up to the governing body. But anyways,
Right.
so then after that, we just, of course, they love bomb you and invite you everywhere. And it was a real small town, so we just get kind of close to everybody, and then you just kind of get sucked into it, and that's really what happened. And I would just show up to the meetings. I would comment. I do everything that they expected because I just, wanted to learn more. But at that time, I didn't really question too much.
Yeah. But it was making sense to you at the time. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
So then, I guess then you would have worked your way up to ministerial servant.
mhm. Yeah. So I believe it was like 3 years after I was baptized. I think I became a ministerial servant. Yeah. I mean, somebody could probably put the math together and it doesn't pan out because I really don't remember the dates or how old I was, but it was about 3 years because I think at that time that was kind of like the standard. Like you're baptized 3 years and then you can become a ministerial servant. And then, I ran the mics, and I'm always a person that tries to follow through with things. So whenever they first gave me a talk outline, it was like, well, I'm going to try hard. And I was just kind of giving talks kind of the way they gave talks, and it's kind of like as if you're at a convention, you're trying to project your voice, and it doesn't look natural. And later on, whenever I became an elder, I try to be more natural, and I look at audience because they're people. And I really didn't get initially I'd get nervous, but later on it just got easier and easier because you're just talking, you know?
Yeah. And then, how long would you say you were a ministerial servant before you became an elder?
Hmm. Okay, so I had to have been, let me see, because I think 2001. So 2003, I think a little bit, yeah, I guess it's kind of towards the end of 2003. I think I became a ministerial servant. And then in 2009 is whenever I was appointed as an elder. So
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, and it took a little bit. I think it was what 7 years. Is that 7 years? I don't even remember. I think at one time I actually tried to do the math, and I don't remember, but I do remember 2009 is when I was appointed as an elder, and I just kind of just fit right in as far as just trying to learn different assignments and things like that. But I think they liked that I would just take the initiative, and that's just, yeah, something I learned in the Air Force was, take the initiative at work. I have to take the
You were
initiative.
probably responsible and, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and as a family, we were happy, and that's something that a lot of the witnesses they liked about us is that we're happy. We were always positive, and we weren't trying to cause drama, and they could actually talk to us until I became an elder. And once you become an elder and nobody wants to be your friend, so I was like, that's all right. My family, we're really close, and it was okay.
Did you and I know in, like, the congregations I had been in, it seems like the elders always hang out with the other elders. Was that the case for you? Or in your
um,
congregation?
well, there were very few elders that really wanted to hang out. I mean, they would talk about it like, "Oh yeah, we should get together and this and that," but nobody really wanted to be like hospitable. And for me, at my house, it's like I like to barbecue, and then I like to host things. So, and I had, a bar, I always had a bar. So open bar, and nobody got trashed or anything, but it's just something there. And if it bothered anyone that there was alcohol, there, then, basically we had a saying. It was basically, we would tell them, we understand that you will not be able to make it, because if it offends them, we understand that they'll decline the, invitation, which is fine,
Yeah, but you're
but
just letting them know they were invited. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but, there were a very few. One of the ones that really, I feel like he was just jealous of me, and he just, I don't know. We kind of rubbed each other the wrong way, and he's real competitive, and it was just kind of weird. But he would invite me over, and he acted like he was my friend, but in all reality, when it, all boils down to it, he was the one that we talked about as far as the photo.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, we could
Yes.
talk about that here in a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's good. That's a great story. And Edward, you have a YouTube channel. I know you're not actively posting right now, right? But
Mhm.
I do want to put a link in it if it's okay with you, in the
Yeah.
description below the video, because you have some great videos and that are definitely worth watching, and you have some great stories. I hope you'll share with us today.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, I'm not like a YouTuber, so of course it is as generic as can be. But it's just, I just wanted to share my experience. So it's not, I don't hate Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't hate the people, or anything like that, and I don't wish them anything, bad or anything like that. It's just that was my experience, and
Yeah.
some of it was good and some of it was bad, and in the end it got really bad.
Wow. So what led to you finally waking up?
I just started seeing things, just as far as I think it was around 2014, 2015. Um, I started seeing things. Actually, it goes even before that. Um, let's go all the way back to when I was a ministerial servant, or just
Yeah.
before I was a ministerial servant. I was out in the ministry with an elder, and I remembered that a family had disassociated. And I told him, I said, "Oh, well, at least they didn't get disfellowshipped. They didn't do anything wrong." And he was like, "Oh no, that's worse than being disfellowshipped." You know, and that's when I realized that you can't just leave the religion. You can't go back to the life that you had before without consequences. And the consequences are you lose your friends, you could lose your family. And but that's kind of where it started. And then later on, I just started seeing things like, when the silver Bible came out, or the gray Bible, there's some flaws in there, but yet, they proofread everything. They're all perfect. And
Yeah,
when
I
once
think that was that 2013 they came out with that, I
oh, was
think?
it 2013?
I
Okay, maybe
I
maybe we'll
think
see.
so.
I'm
I think
terrible with
so, but I
dates.
could be wrong. I
Okay,
don't know why that pops in my head, but sorry,
okay,
go
that
ahead.
would make sense then, because then that'd be kind of like within the 5 years that I really started waking up. But once the governing body really started showing themselves online and all that stuff, or yeah, that was just like, I yeah, they were kind of embarrassing,
Yeah.
like, let first showed up, I was in shock, like, "Is this guy real?" Is this a joke? Am I being punked? It's just like, what is going on? It just didn't make any sense, you
He
know?
sounds yeah, he's like he's more of a clown.
Yeah, and his expressions, and people just would talk about it like, "Oh, he's so expressive." I'm like, "No, no, I wouldn't call that expressive." You know,
Yeah,
it's just
not it's he's if he's expressive, it's not in a good way.
yeah, yeah. And then, just seeing things happening, in the congregation, giving talks and seeing how miserable everyone was. And then, coming to the realization how miserable I was, because
Mm.
I wanted to be myself. And at work, I have coworkers, and, they were my friends. We didn't hang out because I still followed the rules, but I always viewed them as being my friends because, we can talk about stuff, we could joke about stuff, and I always kept it clean. But it was I realized that, and I knew because I was in the military, just being surrounded by people of the world, that there are a lot of really good people out there, and I worked with a lot of really good people in the Air Force and in the railroad, the same thing. Just there are a lot of really good people out there. So anyways, I couldn't imagine that, God would want to destroy good people. And every time when somebody at the meeting would say something like, "Oh, I wish the end would come today." It's like, so if the end came today, then you're basically saying, my mom's not going to make it. My brothers aren't going to make it, because none of them had anything to do with the religion, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
I love my mom. So I can't imagine, you know, you know, anything, like that happening. Like God would be that loving that He can destroy, like, what you said in your video, and 99.9%, you know. And
Yeah.
Thanos, he was what do you call it, a super villain, and he only destroyed 50%. And he was a super villain, you know. So yeah, it didn't make any sense. But yeah, that was kind of like, part of the waking up, just looking at around and just kind of trying to see things objectively, as if I was looking in from, you know, a uh, a realistic person's point of view.
Mm. Wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
go ahead, keep going.
Well, yeah, I want to say realistic because I didn't want to say worldly, because it's like, because that's what the witnesses label people as, is worldly. But I do like mention to people like that have never been Jehovah's Witnesses of how Jehovah's Witnesses actually view them as part of Satan's wicked system of things, and they could be good people, but how do you label them as part of being Satan's wicked system? It just that doesn't make any sense, but that's maybe another subject. But
Yeah, they do look at them pretty bad, don't they?
hmm yeah.
Wow. So then what happened?
As far as just kind of seeing how the congregations are, all the rules and things like that. My daughter, yeah, the one that she also disassociated, she had questions, and she'd always bring up like something like, "Well, why can't we have beards?" Or, not we, but why can't men have beards? And I'd have to tell her the truth that, well, in the Bible actually says that you should have a beard because it's
Yeah.
kind of bad to not have a beard. Maybe that's why they changed their little rule because somebody actually read the Bible. But
Right, right. It
yeah,
actually says not to cut your beard, right?
yeah, and also about tattoos and on marking your body and this and that. But yeah, it's just a series of things just kind of woke me up, and I'd be lenient on a lot of things, even with my kids. I wanted them to, have friends and, hang out with friends and maybe get in a little bit of trouble or, whatever. And, um, but I always tried to, you know, remember that, hey, when I was a kid, I did a lot more things. And you know what? It kind of made me who I am today. And just like, um, how I treated my children as they grew up, it made them to be who they are. And they're exceptional people. I love them to death, and that's why I really want to get out of religion, because I know that we can be happier. you know
Yeah. So how were you able to get your family out?
um I was shocked, actually, but well, part of the process of me waking up, I would get depressed. I'd be mad, and I mentioned in my video that, I'd be driving home because we'd have a meeting, and then I'd have an elders meeting. And then
Mm.
after the elders meeting, I have to go to work like in a few hours, because everybody has regular jobs and I'm on call. I'd be going home and I'm just cussing, everything that a non-Christian would be doing. I'd be all mad, and then I would lay down at night and I didn't even want to wake up. It's like I was that depressed where it didn't matter to me if I woke up the next day. So
Wow.
yeah. So anyways, I would bring things up to my wife about the religion, and she'd get mad, but that's because that's what they're trained to do. And now she like thinks back and she's like, she can't believe that she even acted that way, because we know so much now. But anyways, one night, it was probably about 2:30 in the morning. She just asked me. She said, "Do you ever think that maybe this isn't the true religion?" And that just caught me off guard, because I that's what I want to hear.
Wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
because witnesses don't say that. And so I'm like, why? What's going on? And and the whole thing was because my daughter was pregnant, and if she gets anemia, or she has to get a blood transfusion, you know she's married, is her husband gonna allow a blood transfusion? And I told my wife, I said, well, if needed a blood transfusion, I would have said yes. If they disfellowship anybody, it's going to be me, because
Right.
I put it on there. And I'll just have to go to the meetings for year 3 or whatever, and then I could be back, you know, but you'd be
But
alive.
yeah.
hmm So I told
Wow.
her, I said, yeah, I said, well, if you Google colostrum, which is what's in breast milk.
Yeah.
A baby drinks colostrum, and colostrum has whole white blood cells in it. So the witnesses are basically saying that you can physically feed a baby blood cells, but you couldn't give blood intravenously to save their life. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I that
Yeah.
was it's something I didn't know until I started waking up and I learned about that breast milk having blood cells in it. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. So after, mentioning that, we talked about, all kinds of stuff, and just, we came to the conclusion. She's like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, we need to get out of this. Yeah. So, and anyways, I just said, well, we can't tell the kids, our kids are, baptized. Well, two of them were, and because, you mention something to your baptized kids and you can lose them, because then they
Yeah.
have to shun you. So, I was like, well, we can't tell our kids. Well, the next day, Jennifer's like, well, I talked to Jada, and I'm like, oh no, I'm like thinking, great, what's gonna happen? But I just know, I inside I knew, that my kids, value the family more than they valued the organization, you know.
Yeah.
And anyways, it was like, and Jennifer said, well, Jada said she's been feeling the same way. So, and then it just kind of
Wow.
went to everybody just kind of waking up, um and
Wow.
my son hadn't been going to meetings for a while. And yeah, it was just nice to have everybody out. And it's crazy because they announce it as if you did something wrong, that you got disfellowship. They just say, Edward, is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, so
Yeah.
it leaves people to speculate. And you know how they always, preach about do not speculate, well, excuse me, that's what they do. They start speculating, and then eventually, the reports are that, something happened with Jada and her husband, and maybe they're getting a divorce, or who knows. And it's just, family protecting each other. I don't it's just madness. But in
I do
all
have a
reality,
question. Were
uh-huh.
you an elder all the way up to the time you disassociated, or
It
how did
was
that
probably
work?
about, yeah. So at the internet, well, excuse me. So at the international convention, it was the one here in Phoenix.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so it was just before that. It was like a few days before that that we all woke up and just started to realize that we need to get out of this. And we did go. We went to the Friday because I follow through with things, and I had a cleaning assignment that I was, uh, whatever, just
In charge
kind of,
of.
yeah, in charge of. So, we did that, and I was just, it was just terrible being there. Like, for one, Hurd, he went up there and he was just so arrogant. Like, he stood up there and it was quiet, so he stepped back a little bit. Then he stood up there again, and he just waited for the applause, and then everybody started clapping. And I was like, that is
Wow.
like really like, that's not humble at all, And it just made me sick because I know how he views women.
Yeah.
And and it's just, and I just didn't want to be there. And it was so hot there, in Phoenix. And then, I went to go look for a water bottle, like, do they sell water bottles anywhere? Of course, you're not allowed to sell anything anywhere, but there's tons of water bottles underneath the tables. And, I
Oh.
I asked a woman, like, can I get a water bottle? Because I was really dehydrated. And she's like, "Oh no, these are for the delegates." Yeah, I think there's a water fountain over there. I'm like, for a you won't give me a 20 something cent, water bottle, So I was just so like angry that I was just like, I just need to get out of here. So when we were leaving, it was a good feeling just getting out away from all that. And then the next day we're all at home just chilling, just watching TV, and it was just like a regular day. Everybody felt good. Um yeah, we're just hanging out. And we didn't know exactly how we are gonna fade, because at the time we were gonna fade.
Okay.
We didn't know how we were gonna do it, but I had an idea. And it didn't work. So
That's
so
like us,
so
Shane and I, we were gonna fade, and it didn't work out that way.
yeah. So that Sunday, the last day of the convention, I had contacted an elder, and I said, "Hey, I need to step down," and I sent him my, it's like a resignation letter.
Oh,
And
wow. And
I've
you said that
I've
was the last day of the convention?
the last day, yes,
Oh,
I sent it
wow.
to him, and I just told them all, kind of BS that, I need to go and help my mom and travel more and this and that, and I need to really pay attention, more to the family, and they understood, because it was just BS anyway. But
Yeah.
I just knew I had to get out of that position. I had talks lined up, and I didn't want to give the talks, So, and yeah, if you had seen my last talk, I didn't even use the Bible in the talk. I didn't even open it. It was just I just talked. Yeah. And but anyway, so I had talked to him and he's like, "Oh yeah, well, whenever we go back to the meeting, and the meetings were gonna be like another week away, and he's like, we could all get together and we'll talk about it." I'm like, "No, I just need, because by the book, you just need two elders to meet with me, just to make sure there's no wrongdoing or whatever." And they met with me. And as I was leaving, the coordinator told me he got like gave me a hug, and he said, "Well, Satan's going to try and you know find things for you to do, but also keep in mind that your son is bad association."
Oh my
My
goodness.
son my son has never done anything wrong. Matter of fact, his cards weren't even in that congregation or anything. It's just he just had this thing for my son. I have no idea. It's just weird. But
That is weird.
um yeah, so yeah, and then we anyways, I told him that I was gonna tell him where to send the cards, and it's like 2 weeks later, he's like, I think the secretary messaged me and asked where to send them, and I was like, "Well, we don't know yet, but I'll let you know soon." About that week,
So
my daughter. uh,
you must have told them you were, so you told them you were stepping down as elder,
mhm,
and then you sounds like you told them you're changing congregations?
mhm, yeah,
Okay.
because that's the only way that I could think of that we can fade. And at
Yeah,
that time, uh, everything was, and things weren't electronic yet. Because like I think the cards are all electronic. I don't even know if they keep a physical copy of the card.
that's right.
So
Mhm.
yeah, so they can keep things in databases now versus the old system. It was a shoebox and it had everybody's cards in it. Everybody thinks that their records are like this big envelope or anything. No, it's a card. It's that same card that the field service group overseer shows you every once in a while. That
Yeah,
is your
mhm.
record, and that has your birth date on it. That has your address, phone number, has your baptism date. And if they don't have that card, you don't exist,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah. So, anyways, I had what did I do? Next thing was, so my daughter was pregnant. So her and her husband were expecting in March, and again, this is all probably around October time. Actually, it
Okay.
was October. I think it was around October 13th or something like that. That we sent in. Me and my daughter sent in our disassociation letters, and the reason is because my daughter said she didn't want anyone to feel like she used them for baby gifts, because they're going to want to have baby showers and things like that. And maybe she should be telling you the story. But anyways, but
We'll have to have
anyways,
her on next.
I know, yeah, yeah. But yeah, so she had to so she was like, well, I don't want, because she wanted to celebrate holidays and, do things and raise, her children, free, basically. And so she's like, I need to send her my disassociation letter. I'm like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, they're going to shun you. They're going to shun me too. So do you need an example? Because I had mine already written out. And she's
Oh,
like, what?
wow.
Yeah, everything had been on my iPad for a long time. My letter to resign from being an elder, that
Oh,
was
wow.
on there. My disassociation letter, that was on there. And I've had it for a while because I was miserable, and nobody ever looked at my iPad. It's just, yeah. I still don't have anything on there. I don't play games or anything, so it's just all like, I think it's just a few apps. But one of the apps that, if you looked into my notes, that's where everything was.
Oh,
But
wow.
Yeah, but it was nice. It was nice to hear that, she was, going to move forward with disassociating because when we
And
sent in
did
those
you
letters,
sent that you sent the letters to the that same congregation that you were moving out of?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I sent it to, I think I might have sent it to all the elders. I know three of them for sure, the service overseer, coordinator, and secretary. But
Okay.
um, well, we sent it and it was like on a Tuesday. And then come to find out, it just happened to be the week of the circuit overseer visit.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was just I couldn't stop laughing because I know that feeling that when the circuit overseer shows up and then all of a sudden, something blindsides, the elders, that it puts them in a really bad position. And that's what I know that's what it did. I'm sure their faces all just went, just cringe. But yeah, we sent it on that and it was such a relief. It was like a burden was lifted off of my shoulders, for sure. And I was happy, and people at work, they could tell I was happy,
Yeah.
because they say, "You look different," you know? I'm like, "I'm free." And then they're like, "From what?" And then it goes into a conversation. And I'm telling you, anybody that I work with, they're not gonna answer the door, and
Yeah.
that's, something that, I mean, it's their decision what they wanna do, but, they just a lot of them have had been burned from religion too, but and none most of them didn't know anything about, Jehovah's Witnesses, but once they
Yeah,
found out, yeah.
have found, because I talk to almost everybody, it comes up easily in conversations, like you said,
Mm,
and I find that a lot of people, they just think that the witnesses are they're really nice people, they're just the quirky ones that come to your door, they're
mhm,
nice but quirky, they don't
yeah,
realize really how, um, uh, what a terrible religion it is and what damage
mhm,
they do.
yeah. And a lot of them, they had questions, and I tell them, like, "Hey, if you have any questions, I'll tell you whatever you wanna know." And it's all based off of my experience. So, as far as like, um, how Jehovah's Witnesses view apostates as people that are lying about them. I don't lie about anything, even though they, view anybody that leaves the religion as an apostate. I don't lie. I just tell you what's my experience. That is my experience. They want to shield a lot of the wrongdoing that's going on in that religion, so much that they they're not even honest with themselves. So it's
Yeah.
just
And then, and what about your wife? Did she, you just mentioned it was just you and your daughter,
mhm.
wrote the letters of disassociating. Your wife did not.
No. What I did was because she doesn't really have to deal with any of that. And, if she wanted to, she can, but it's like we've outgrown all of that, and it's like they have, the only authority that they have is the authority that you give them, and I did put in my letter of disassociation that I revoke permission for anyone that's affiliated with the Watchtower Bible Tract Society to contact my wife or minor child, because I know how headship works, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, I put that in there because she doesn't need that. I have a no soliciting sign on my door. And, it's just, I just, I want to be free. And
Yeah.
so I actually put that no soliciting sign on the wall while we still had field service group there. And I remember one of the guys was like, he read the sign. He's like, no soliciting. And I'm like, yeah, it's dangerous when people come to your house. Oh, okay. That includes witnesses. Do you get
Yeah.
it? You don't know who's coming to your door. I mean, like,
That
we've
is
seen,
funny. Oh
yeah,
my
just
goodness.
like, we've seen with the Australian Royal Commission, and that was like something that I didn't know about. And once I found out about that, it was just like I was just floored. And oh, and when I did leave, I still went by the rules. I didn't watch YouTube videos or anything like that. I didn't, you know, really look for apostate material. Instead, I just went based off of my own experience. But once I started watching the videos, I it just yeah, I realized how damaging that the religion really was, and how much more there was that I didn't know, like the Australian Royal Commission and the CSA cases.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, and it's horrible. It is. It is horrible for them to hide and move people around, and even in the congregations that I went to, there were, you know, what do you call them? Offenders or
Oh, yeah.
molesters. I don't know if
Yeah.
I can say that on here, but
Yeah, you're
but
fine.
you can bleep it out. But anyways, yeah, I didn't know if um well, I forgot what I was I saying.
Well, that you knew of some in the congregations that were, um, abusers.
Oh yeah. So yeah, and I knew there were, some in the congregation that were abusers, and and they didn't warn the families about them, and it's
Really?
just yeah, and it's sad because you got elders, you got people that are snowbirds that live there, and just different ones, and yeah, and it's just sad. It's sad, you know. And
Yeah.
then I remember, and what's crazy is, what also like I thought was kind of weird before I stepped down for being an elder is actually probably a few years prior. Um, we got a letter, and the letter specifically stated for the secretary and no, not the secretary. Yeah, secretary and the service overseer to go through all the files, which the files are all the disfellowship files, right? They're envelopes that are sealed, and they were to open those envelopes, which it was a rule not to ever open those envelopes unless another case came up or whatever, judicial hearing. So, anyways, they opened them up, and what they're supposed to do is destroy everything, but write a summary, and put that in the
Wow.
file. Yeah. So whenever the CSA, so that's how you can tell what the whole thing with the that happened in Australia, how they changed even the policies around here, and had the elders cover up stuff, thinking that, oh, we're just making the cabinets lighter so we can fit more stuff in there. No,
Yeah.
they're hiding stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy. And they also limited access to the filing cabinet. Like, for me, I was the secretary, so I got the keys to the file, and all the elders had keys to the file. And then whenever they started combining halls and stuff because they were selling off Kingdom halls, um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, there were only certain elders, like I think it was the coordinator and the secretary, were allowed to have the keys. Nobody else.
Wow.
So it's like they didn't even trust the elders.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, that's
Wow.
another thing that is just like part of the whole waking up process, and just starting to see how things really were, because when you're in that environment and you're an active Jehovah's Witness, you're so busy that you don't have time to even think about what's going on. You don't have time to, and you're not allowed to, if there's a news broadcast and it talks about Jehovah's Witnesses, you're not allowed to look at it. You know,
Yeah.
you're not, yeah,
You're
you're not allowed to, yeah.
they've got you on that hamster wheel, constant
Mm.
hamster wheel, I call it.
Yeah. And it's just crazy how I remember them saying, um, not to look at stuff online because it's Satan. Satan is has all this propaganda, satanic propaganda,
It's a trap,
and
it's a trap.
yeah, and it's like I that's another thing that I mentioned. I think in my videos that, yeah, I think is the one about Satan, is that they paid more attention to the belief in Satan, that I heard Satan's name more in the meeting than I did Jesus. You know,
Yeah,
yeah, and
good
then
point.
yeah, and it's just, and it's the it's just like a mythological figure that nobody could see, that yet he's toying with our lives, when in all reality, it's like, when people do bad things, it's because they had a bad thought, or they just did bad things. Nobody
Right,
made
right.
them do it. It's taking away the responsibility of the people by saying that, oh, Satan made them do it.
That's right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't
Man.
know. So see,
And then
you,
you had I remember watching you talking about in your videos some things that went on. There was like the elder body didn't always get along too well.
mhm. Yeah. So I remember we had like a lot of elders that came from like the Chicago area, Illinois or Michigan. And I know I said Chicago wrong. It's Chicago, not Chicago, but it's just a habit. But anyways, please don't be offended. But anyways, a lot of people came from Chicago, and of course, people of color, and the elders that were you know local were not people of color, and they always disagreed on certain things, but yet they wouldn't let you know the people from Chicago like get like um, they would keep them from being like secretaries and things like that. They'd always want it was just this whole thing. I don't even know what it was, if it had to do with race or jealousy or what it was. Maybe because they had better talks. I have no idea, but yeah, there was just this whole fight and jealousy kind of thing. And yeah, it just, and I
Interesting.
still, yeah, and even like when you think about like the hall cleaning and stuff, it's like, who's going to do all the landscaping? It's going to be the ones that are Latin descent. you
Yeah.
know
Wow.
yeah, and it's
That's
like
what they do, right?
yeah, just because maybe they might have that business doesn't mean they like to do it,
That's right.
everybody else can do it too, yeah. So but I just things like that I didn't like. Oh, and then just yeah, going back to them fighting and stuff, they would be fighting over like just things that are just so dumb. It was like watching nerds fight, it's just it didn't make any sense. Just yeah, it was, I don't know, to me it was just kind of embarrassing, but it's sad that in the elders, or not the elders, the circuit overseer. So the circuit overseer would always write like this summary of their visit and things to work on. And I don't know how many that we had that would say that the elders need to work on getting along. And
Wow.
yeah, and that's sad, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just too. I feel like if you have a lot of money, then your odds are you're probably going to be the coordinator. The odds are you're
Oh.
going to be the circuit. What do you call it? The not circuit, but the convention
Uh,
overseer.
oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They don't just give that to anybody. You got to have money, and yeah, of course time, because people are working for you, so you have more time to do that stuff. It's a lot of busy work. I'm glad that I never had to do any of that. Um,
Yeah.
oh, all I ever did was like work with the attendants, and then I got sucked into doing the janitorial stuff. So I
Ah,
was, yeah, so I was in charge of cleaning for all the assemblies. I was trying to get out of it. I don't want to do that. But
yeah, because
again, it's
then you
just
gotta stay, a long time after, right? To make sure
yeah,
everything's cleaned and yeah.
you have to do the walkthrough at the very end, and everybody's hungry, and it was just. I'm so glad to be out of that. It was just a mess. Yeah.
It's amazing how much more time you have when you get out
Mhm.
of that religion.
Yeah.
You gain so much time. It's wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a gift for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we can. I mean, I'm able to work the amount of time that I want to work at my job, and plan my vacations for me. And I get quite a bit of vacation, but um, now I can use them to actually go on trips. I take the last 2 weeks of the year just for Christmas. So that way I can be with the family and do a lot of cooking and eating. Unfortunately, too much eating. Yeah,
You got
but I mean
yeah, you gotta enjoy that part.
yeah, it's nice. But at that time it's cooler, so I can wear my winter clothes.
That's right. Yeah, there it gets really hot there in Arizona. You probably really appreciate being able to wear your winter clothes.
Yeah, yeah, and just with the free time too, it's like grandchildren. It's like now I have time for them. So when
How
I'm
many do you
home,
have
like
now?
we have two grandchildren, two granddaughters, and
Oh,
yeah, and they're just like, oh my goodness. Well, one's newborn,
yeah,
and the
that's
other one,
right.
and the oldest is 4. And I mean, just the time that I get to spend, like with you know, my 4-year-old grandchild, it's just I get to watch her grow up, and it's like watching my daughter grow up all over again. And I can't believe like she's already 4 years old.
Oh, she's
She's all
adorable too, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
S
thanks.
Such a cutie.
Yeah.
Such a cutie. That's nice you
Mm,
get to spend so much time with them.
yeah, and it's just not only that. You know, I ended up buying a business too, so then I have time to do that, and I made that one to where I don't really have to do anything. It just, you know,
Runs itself.
yeah, it runs itself. I maybe spend maybe a couple hours a week, maybe just working on paperwork kind of stuff and scheduling and things like that. But I mean, that's something that I wanted to do. Um, I used to do woodworking, and I realized that it was just a therapy for me. I really like to see the things that I build and stuff. But I just once you know once we got out and stuff, and after certain things, I just got rid of all my tools and just focused on my business and just working for the
Poor
railroad.
personal
So
goals. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And but yeah, we get to spend a lot more time together. We have the means to be able to do things that we couldn't do in that religion, because I miss so much work being in that religion.
Mm.
It was terrible. I mean, talk about like, paycheck to paycheck, and it's like, and it never should ever be like that way. You should be able to have some kind of a savings. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but I do remember like the friends and stuff, like, just worried about, having a job, worried about going to assemblies and conventions because they don't have vacations.
Yeah.
And
And then
so
having to
they're
take
like,
off that day, the time. Yeah.
yeah, and then they always have parts that say, oh yeah, well, this brother quit his job just to go to the convention. That's not something that you teach people. That's terrible.
Bad
But
advice. Yeah.
yeah, and they still want donations. So
Yeah. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Tell us about, I thought this was an interesting story, about that when you got called in because you were hanging out with your in-laws.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and they weren't disfellowshipped or anything. It's just they weren't going to the meetings, and it's just, stuff happens. My father-in-law, he was sick, and he had Parkinson's. And so anyways, yeah, so the elder, that basically the ringleader, I felt like he was just jealous of my brother-in-law because he's a businessman too. And anyways, so anyways, he just basically labeled him as an apostate. And he's never been to a judicial, he's never been, you know uh disfellowshipped or anything like that. So anyways, so I'd go over there and I'd help out my father-in-law. I used to shave his face for him. And anyways, just by us going there, or if we just happen to be at my in-laws house and taking care of like family matters and stuff, they viewed it as us associating with them. So I was doing a little bit of work for my brother-in-law, and anyways, they called me back there. They called me into the back room, and I knew what it was going to be about.
It
So I
was
text
were
my
you
wife.
an elder at this point?
Yes, I was an elder, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, they didn't like how, I would confront them, face to face about certain matters, and I, I just be realistic about it. And whenever you say realistic things, they don't like that. And there are also key words to use whenever you talk to elders, like, meddling. You tell them, well, this sounds like meddling. They don't like to hear that because that's a disfellowshipping offense. So I would bring up little words like that, but I knew what was going to happen. So I text my wife and I was like, I need you to send me this picture. So I text my wife. I went into the meeting. The elders were all around and they handed me like some papers, talking about not associating with disfellowshipped ones or not associating with the spiritually weak or things like that. Was it spiritually weak or worldly people? And anyways, I told him, "Oh, okay, well, thanks, but I don't understand, what you're saying. I don't understand what this is all about." And well, your brother-in-law and this and that. And I'm like, "Is he disfellowship?" And they're like, "No, but he's bad association, and he's talked to some of the friends about stuff that may be considered apostate." I'm like, "But is there judicial hearing? Is he disfellowship?" And they're like, "Oh." And I'm like, so I pulled out this picture of the coordinator at a restaurant having a drink with his two disfellowship sisters.
Wow.
And yeah,
Wow.
and jaws dropped, and it was almost like nobody wanted to be part of this lynching. They're like, we gotta go. And yeah, so everything kind of ended there. That one elder, the coordinator, he was in there and he's like, I that was supposed to be deleted. Well, his sister posted it, but, just because he wanted her to delete it doesn't mean that she has to do what he says, but anyways,
And just 'cause
yeah,
if she did delete it, it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
yeah, exactly, and that's just how nitpicky their rules are, but the rules don't apply to the ones that enforce the rules.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just yeah, it was a mess, and I kind of after that, you know, they kind of treated me a little different. I still had some that I was still pretty close with, but there were some that just they had it out for my family. And if they couldn't get to me, they're trying to get to my daughter, accusing, for one, they tried to accuse me of forcing her to get married, which I would never do that.
Yeah.
And then another one, they were upset because my daughter's wedding day was going to be on a Saturday, but that just happened to be the an assembly day. And I told them, it's not my wedding, and it's their wedding, but they can have it on whatever day they want. Keep in mind, everybody's not invited.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this is meddling. And once I said meddling, they just started apologizing, and they said, "You know what? We never should have brought this up." And they went back to that. I think it was the coordinator that had the issue with that, and let him know. And I didn't hear anything about it. You know, but it
Yeah.
turns out that they did change the wedding date from Saturday to Sunday because at the venue, it was going to be a lot cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
you know, yeah, and it was a nice outdoor wedding. Yeah, and
Oh,
yeah, it
nice.
was really nice. Yeah, unfortunately, uh, 95% of the people that went, or I should say probably 90%, don't talk to us anymore because they're all witnesses.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, so when we fed them, I guess you could call that the Last Supper.
Yeah.
You know? And, yeah, it's
That's
it was
funny.
sad. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys are happy now? You
Mhm,
got more time, you can work on goals of that you want, not that
mhm,
what's expected of you,
yeah,
and, the kids are happy,
mhm.
wife's
Yeah,
happy.
yeah, and, the kids, they're all grown up, but they're all doing good. My youngest, and that was another thing when we left, I had told her about us fading, and she was 14 at the time. And I told her, well, we're gonna fade. We're not gonna be going to the meetings anymore. and we're gonna transfer our records and this and that. And I was telling a 14-year-old this, and the first thing she says is, "Why don't you just disassociate?" And I was like, yeah, that'd be ideal, but we can't because my son-in-law's family is in,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then she's like, well, at least they would leave you alone, you know. See, even she was tired of it, and she told me like, she doesn't really know anything about the religion because she never really paid attention. She'd go up there and give her little parts, but she didn't know, she didn't care. And then she
Yeah.
said, and then what she it was cute because in the car, it was just me and her talking. She's like, "So does this mean that I don't have to marry a Jehovah's Witness boy?" And I'm like, "Well, I prefer you don't." And she's
Yeah.
like, and then she like clenches her hands and she looks out the windshield. She's like, "I've never celebrated Christmas." And I was like, "Oh my gosh. Well, this year you're gonna celebrate Christmas." Yeah. So she was all happy. She looked forward to that, and then it was like that next week, or it might have been that same week. She asked if she could go to a quinceañera, and we're like, "Yeah, it's just a birthday." And actually, I didn't realize it, but quinceañeras are almost like a wedding. They're like so elaborate, you know.
Yeah,
So,
extravagant. Yeah.
yeah, so she got to experience that, and that's what it is. Life is about an experience. This is our only guarantee, this time, this moment, because we might not have tomorrow,
That's
but,
right.
and just us existing is an impossibility. So, we don't ever want to take that for granted. So, yes, as a family, we are happy and we're doing so much better. We don't fight as a family, we don't stress as a family. I mean, we spend quality family time that, Jehovah's Witnesses always brag about, which they really don't do, but we
Yeah.
actually get to spend that real quality time. So, yeah, it's been, great getting out of there.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome. I think you have such a great story. Yeah, I'm
Mm,
happy for your family.
thanks. Yeah. And likewise for you, I'm glad that you're out. I mean, it's just, yeah, I can't believe how many that we know have, you know, gotten out or,
Left, yeah.
left. And a lot of the kids that grew up with my kids, they left because, I see why, because Google and, the internet's just like revealing the real truth,
Yeah.
and yeah, because it's like in that religion, you're only allowed to research the material that they give you, which is it's just biased. But
Propaganda. Mhm.
because they don't want you to think for yourself. And as far as these, I don't know, like these ones that are between 15 and 35, they're more techie, so they see things a lot different, and the organization can't keep up with that. They
That's
can't keep the
right.
people. Yeah, the only ones getting baptized are the kids. There are no new people coming in. You know.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, they really, halter, I don't know if that's the word, they really try not to let people do any critical thinking,
Hmm.
and keep them on that busy hamster wheel where they don't have time to use their critical thinking skills. Because once you start using your critical thinking skills, you start seeing things differently. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a question for you. So with all the changes and things, what do you think is going to be the next big change?
Ooh. I definitely think they'll make the blood issue, a conscience matter,
Mm,
um, and, that will be kind of just to be done away with, I think. I really do think that, they can't I don't think they'll come out and say, you know, "Oh, yeah, it's fine," and all that, because then maybe they open themselves up to lawsuits. They'll just leave it at, "Oh, it's a conscience matter."
yeah, yeah.
Um, what else do I think? Uh, I don't know. I think they're eventually gonna have to change the 1914 thing because there's how much time has gone by?
Yeah, yeah, and none of it makes sense. None of it. Yeah, and people aren't interested in that. Like I think like a lot of the older Jehovah's Witnesses were interested in like in the book of Revelation and and all these different things that they just kind of
Deeper
tried to
things.
put tried to put all these clues together that it just sounds like, oh, we have all this knowledge. And people nowadays just they don't care, they don't care what they don't want to know about 1914. It's you know 2024.
Yeah,
That's a
they just
long
want the
time ago.
feel good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so as far as what do you think as far as like the holidays and things like that? Do you think that maybe they'll lighten up on certain holidays?
Yeah, it's been rumored that they might. I think if they do, maybe it would be birthdays.
That's what I was
Um,
thinking.
yeah, I think because that is so nonchalant, like there's absolutely nothing in the Bible that, says you should not. So yeah, I think it could be birthdays. The only other thing I was thinking about that is in there, if you're allowed to celebrate birthdays, oh, well, people might start going to worldly people's birthdays, so
Mhm.
they might be
Oh
worried about
yeah,
that. I don't know. So that's hard to say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What do
I
you
I
think?
thought maybe yeah, I thought maybe like holidays might lighten up on the holidays. I didn't really think about the blood issue, but yeah, that makes sense. Because you know, as far as the science behind it, a blood transfusion isn't the same thing as ingesting food like they make you think. You don't digest it. So
Right.
that whole abstain from blood thing is kind of uh, just a joke. But
Well, yeah,
um,
it kinda reminds me of, like, when they had the Sabbath, and they had all those
mhm,
rules, and you can't do this and that on the Sabbath, but then they were like, Jesus was like, "Well, you can save the donkey, if
mhm,
something's in trouble, I mean, your life's in danger, that's more important than breaking the rule of the Sabbath?" So it's kinda
yeah,
like the blood issue. Like, well, if it's gonna
mhm,
save your life,
mhm,
that's more important than, so
yeah, yeah. I just can't imagine the religion um, staying the way it was. It has to change. It just has to. And my brother-in-law, he's mentioned it to me about eventually that religion is going to be just like a church because it's been following the same pattern as the Catholic religion in a lot of ways. And I can't really tell you exactly, the ways, but he is explaining it.
well, they're
And
definitely becoming more mainstream, would you agree?
oh yeah, well, and two, it's almost like it's a 700 club, because everything's all online. They're changing
Yeah.
with that. And then as far as like the meetings are turning into just it's going to be like a regular mass. Soon it's probably going to be just 1 day a week because remember it used to be three.
Yes,
They
yes.
changed it to two, and then I can see them changing it to one. And if they're
Yeah.
not going to really focus on the going door to door preaching, well, then what do they need the school for? You know?
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is
Yeah, but
true.
but you never know. And they're looking for cuts. So if that light bill is on, then they're spending money. you
That's
know.
right.
Yeah.
That's a
So
good point, yeah.
yeah, but I
Yeah,
do think
less
that
electricity.
maybe they might lighten up on other holidays. Maybe you know I don't know. I don't think Christmas, but
Yeah.
you never know because they might view it eventually as maybe a day where families can just spend time together. And Christmas doesn't have the meaning that it used to. It is really commercialism, or
Yeah.
commercialized, but I mean, who doesn't want to, spend time together as a family? And Christmas songs are, they make you feel good. Giving
Yeah.
gifts makes you feel good, and that you can focus on the bad of anything, but if you look at the good in those things, well then you know your family's happiness to me is a lot more important than you know their their rules and things like that, just what their wants,
Well,
because
yeah, I was thinking they changed their stance on piñatas. I guess that used
mm,
to be like a taboo thing. Not supposed to have a piñata. And yet they said, "Oh, well, now because it doesn't have the same connotation,
mhm,
that you can have a piñata now." So I had always when I read that, I thought, "Well, why don't they apply that to all the other holidays like Christmas?" It doesn't have,
mhm,
there's atheists that celebrate Christmas, because
yeah,
it's time for the family to get together, like you said.
yeah,
So it doesn't have the same connotation as it
mhm,
did hundreds of years ago,
yeah,
so yeah, you wonder why they don't use that same reasoning for, like,
mhm,
birthdays and other holidays.
yeah, and I remember like how they try to have you teach your kids like, oh, Christmas, it's you don't want to lie to your kids about Santa Claus. Well, some people don't even put Santa Claus in the equation, but I mean, Santa Claus is a lot like Jehovah.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows when you've been sleeping, he knows when you're awake,
Love
Yeah,
it.
so I don't
So
know.
true.
So yeah, so I mean, it's like there's a lot of similarities, and then but yet you've never seen Jehovah, right?
Yeah, that's
So
right.
anyways, yeah, it's just yeah. I hope that maybe things get better for them. I hate to see them all the witnesses just living miserable lives, and it's sad because they'll take away your youth to the point where you get to an age that now you can't do without that association.
Yeah.
So you're stuck. So now you just want to stay in, and then of course then you start judging your kids and judging everybody else because they're not getting baptized and they're not coming in. But um yeah, you get to a certain age that you want to be surrounded by other older people, but there's there's ways of getting around that too. I mean, there's a lot of like community things that, people do that are, older and stuff. And, they have like, because I have a lot of customers that live like they're like 50 and older
Uh-huh.
places. And most of them are like in their 60s or 70s. And they go like play pickleball. They go, do things. They have like dances and all these things for families and, you know, couples or elderly couples.
Yeah.
And so there is association out there, and there are a lot of good people, but even in the religion it's like you have to choose, whether you want to hang out with another, Jehovah's Witness couple or not, or family or not, because not everybody is your cup of tea. You can't you you really can't accept everybody because you'll bore each other to death because personalities are so different. And
That's right.
there's always groups, like people will find their group, and and you don't have to be in that religion to do that. So there's other ways to be happy, but I just hope that someday that Jehovah's Witnesses actually can live the real life, you know and not the best life, but the real life, and make it the best. You have new experiences, get to enjoy things, and especially when they get to be older, enjoy their retirement, you know, not have to worry about pioneering or standing by a cart and in the heat, especially in Arizona. I think of the heat in Arizona, it's like horrible, you know.
Uh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
really, yeah, that your summers are pretty brutal there. Spring
yeah,
and fall
and
is beautiful though.
yeah, and if you ever notice too, like, there's like when there's families in at the Kingdom Hall and they have babies and stuff, and they people want them to hurry up and bring them to the hall to, show off the baby, and you're exposing the baby, but then they also want you to take that baby out in the ministry.
Yeah.
But do you ever remember an Awake or Watchtower magazine showing a family pushing a stroller?
No.
I I don't. I don't. Yeah. You'd look at that, and especially like in Arizona, it's too hot. You can't be having those babies out there. It's just it's too hot,
Yeah.
But
Good
but
point.
yeah, yeah. I
Wow.
just I just wish them the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that they are getting more lenient on the rules for sure.
Hmm.
Like the beards, they can have beards now. The women can wear pants, and the guys don't have to wear ties and jackets. I mean, it's good for them. Good for
Hmm.
the I mean, they're moving in the right direction,
Yeah.
but they're still under mind control. So, yeah.
Yeah. And there are a lot of things they still don't accept that it's just inhumane, towards people. It's unloving towards people, just for some of the things they don't accept.
Yeah.
And but it's just it is their religion. They can make whatever rules they want, but I just have an issue with them making rules that can harm other people, whether it's physical or mental. But yeah, but we're happy we're out. And I know you're happy to be out and you get to speak freely, and you don't have to worry about being judged, because
Mhm.
in all reality, like, since I left, I don't even see Jehovah's Witnesses anywhere. Maybe they see me and they go the other way, but but
I
I
said
don't
the
see them.
same thing. I have hard I used to feel like I ran into them all the time, and now I rarely run into them. It's really weird. Yeah, and maybe they're running, yeah, like you said, the other way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
And I
yeah,
think I think yeah, I think too we'd run into them at stores because we'd go to the meetings, and then everybody would run to the store, you
yeah.
know, grocery
Yeah,
store or whatever.
or you're
Yeah.
getting groceries on the days you don't have meetings, so,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah, but I don't see anybody. It's like they don't even exist. But I think I have a video that talks about that too, of how many Jehovah's Witnesses there are compared to the population. And it's just like if you put 500 lines on a piece of paper and one of them is a purple one, you would never even notice it because it's such a small religion. It's not as big as they think it is.
Yeah, I that was another thing that was shocking to me, is to find out, yeah, how really insignificant they are, how very few of them there are compared to the world population.
Yeah,
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 so it's
yeah. And
crazy.
then and then
So yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I
No,
was just gonna
go ahead.
say, is there anything else you wanna, did you left out or that you want to, say before we end this video?
Well, I just think that it's being outside of that religion is the real life. And and you can make it the best life. So anybody that's Jehovah's Witness now that is thinking about leaving or has questions and things like that, it's like just look at things objectively. You know, have the questions. You may not be able to ask the questions in the congregation, but it's good to question. It's good to do your own research, and it's good to actually listen to yourself. Are you depressed? Are you going through certain things? You feel like they're closing in on you, and do you really believe that it's a positive environment or a toxic one? So, I mean, just ask yourself all these questions, and there's a lot of videos out there. Um, just I know that when I was Catholic, I was superstitious, and whenever I became a Jehovah's Witnesses, I became more superstitious. You know, that whole Satan idea, it makes you really superstitious.
Yeah.
And so, try not to think that, there's an outside force that's trying to manipulate you or trying to capture you. That outside force is your own conscience, uh, you know, basically battling with, just these superstitious feelings. Just try to, be positive, try to, make decisions based off of a positive view that you see. I don't know if that makes any sense, but just try to just basically try to live the happiest life that you can, because you know today is your only guarantee, and you want to love the ones that you're with, and you want to enjoy the things that this life, this planet, the society, that can give you, because there's a lot of positivity in the world, and you can't view it as Satan's system, because it's just we're just all human. But
Mhm. Like you
um,
said, there's a lot of good people out there.
yes, yeah, a lot of good people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here, and thank you for your time. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview, and I will see you on the next video.
I'm changing my life and